since I am going to tell you about my Joshua and my other children conceived at the same time, I thought hearts and a yellow bunny suit, which was my favorite color when I was little, was a good choice. This all started way back when I was 6 years old. I had a dream that I was a grown-up, and I was taking my 5-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, to their first day of kindergarten. They were shining in white robes, and instead of taking a seat, they began kind of floating between the rows of children teaching them. The teacher looked at me and said, "Ma, you have very enlightened twins." And I woke up. Now I didn't even know what enlightened meant. I asked my grandmother and she sent me to get a dictionary to look it up. This is the reason I research all things myself. She always had us do it. She was a wonderful woman. Age 6 was a very strange year. I had many dreams which I will share sometimes. It was also the year I rejected God, sort of, as you will see. Though I claimed I didn't believe most of my life, there were indications I was lying to myself all along when I rejected organized religion. I was always seeking answers. My questions either couldn't be, or weren't being because they thought I couldn't understand, or both, answered by the supposed church leaders, so I figured it was a myth. I also had a very strange experience. One evening, for no apparent reason as I slept, my eyes became crusted over with mucus, all over. When I woke up I couldn't open my eyes and I began to cry, which didn't help, just made pressure and pain because the crust would not loosen. It took my mom about 20 minutes to remove it with hot wet towels and chipping away. We always said it was something like scales fell off my eyes. Fast forward to adulthood, and although I claimed not to really believe there was a God, I somehow held on to that dream, that it was a promise from God, and I would have these children. I won't get into the details of my meeting and relationship with my ex-husband, Rex, because that's a whole nother supernatural event, but after years of struggling, false alarms, at least one miscarriage, and rounds of artificial insemination, we finally had insurance that would cover in vitro fertilization. Immediately, it was like everything was against us. The insurance company, due to my past mental and, at the time, my medical conditions, denied our request. My spirit was disquieted, my mind in torment, but I thought, hey, this is just the devil trying to stop our blessing. We'd just have to have faith. It didn't occur to me it might be the Holy Spirit warning me of the pain to come, if I tried, as Sarah and Abraham had, to bring about God's promise. There was a 6-month battle, and I had to have 4 doctors release me. My general practitioner, psychiatrist, OB/GYN, and pain management doctor, begrudgingly, agreed. They knew how desperately we had been trying. Finally it was agreed to, and I began hormone shots, 2 rounds, the first not really producing the results they desired. The second, and last shot, 8 eggs were matured, and 7 were conceived on August 31, 2006. But by September 3, only the 2 we planned on implanting survived. Had the others made it to the 5th day, they would have been frozen until we could have them implanted, someday. On the 3rd, the 2 were implanted, and just 10 days later, the day after I began having hyperemesis, that is severe morning sickness, we found out I was pregnant, and it was twins. However, one twin, we were told, was already reabsorbing. There would be only one, due between my son's birthday, May 22nd, and my own, June 1st, on my uncle's, May 27th. I was followed very closely, and I was in and out of the hospital. At one point I had to go every morning for several hours to receive IV fluids and nutrition because of the vomiting. Meanwhile, back on the home front, all hell was also breaking loose. My husband's job got an account which doubled his work. We had no car, and he had to leave by 4:30 a.m. to get to work at 7:30 and wouldn't get home until after midnight sometimes, having to walk more than a mile each way to the BART station, something like the subway/light rail trains in the San Francisco Bay Area. My relationship with my mother went all nutty. I would see a dark cloud around her, but at the time I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. Recently my mother shared how she was feeling at the time, and said, it was like a dark cloud had descended on me, and I couldn't help myself. My husband had also described the time as suddenly, it was like a dark cloud surrounded us. Neither knew the other had said it, and I hadn't, until they mentioned the dark cloud, mentioned seeing one around my mom. My doctor kept saying, "You should not be pregnant." Until I told him how that hurt my feelings so much, because I was pregnant. So now what was the point in saying that? I love Dr. Fogarty. He apologized and set out to help me make it. He said several prophetic things, which at the time he said them struck us as strange. First, as I noted, he kept saying, "You shouldn't be pregnant." Second, he tested me for conditions which normally affect white, but not black people, noting the obvious mix. My aunt had just happened to have gotten her DNA tested, which showed, at least at my mom's level, 85% Caucasian, 8% Native American and only 5% African, and I am more directly mixed than they are but don't know the breakdown. Third, he said to me, if we make it to the 24th week, we should be in the clear. Third, he warned me the medicine I was taking could cause seizures. I had been taking it off and on since I was 16 and had no problems. 2 weeks later seizure, I got out of the hospital on New Year's Eve 2006. About 2 weeks later I had another dream. I dreamed I went into labor, and when the baby was born it had transparent, or invisible patches on part of the head, part of the body, part of the thigh, as if part spirit and part flesh. That's exactly what I thought in the dream. The baby was alive and functioning, but you could see right through the baby in places. A week later, we went for a 4D ultrasound, which is amazing. You can see the baby so clearly. We wanted to be surprised by the sex, but the baby didn't cooperate anyways in showing if it was a boy or girl. As the technician ran the wand over my stomach, the image became distorted and looked just like in the dream. I jumped up and said, "Oh my God." She told me not to worry, it was just distortion. I explained I knew that, but the image was just like the baby in my dream. Another week went by. On February 2, 2007, 24 weeks, 1 day. I had been in the hospital during the week before when for no apparent reason my nose began to bleed so badly I had gone unconscious. I didn't know what happened till I woke in my mom's arms, hearing her saying "Hold on, it's okay," and talking to 911. I was thinking, what's wrong with her? Why is she holding me? Where did all this blood come from? A couple days after I got out the hospital I was back in emergency. This time I couldn't breathe. They thought I might have a blood clot in my lungs, but found none, and sent me home. On that day, at age 33, I woke in the morning and turned on the 700 Club, which was when I was still giving the benefit of the doubt to Pat Robertson. And if you don't know why I no longer am, Google his recent advice on divorce and Alzheimer's, or whether he thinks a sex change operation can be alright if it's true God put them in the wrong sex body. This showed a clip of a woman, about my age, 6 months pregnant, who went in for an ultrasound, and the baby's heart hard stopped, but God told her not to believe the bad report. That His grace was with her, if I am not mistaken, that's her name, Grace, or Faith, one of the two. The next day when they were going to do a procedure called a D&E to remove the baby, she insisted on another ultrasound, which you would think would be standard. Well, sure enough, the baby's heart was strong, and the rest of her pregnancy uneventful. I knew somehow this related to me, but I didn't imagine what was about to happen. I still couldn't breathe so well, unless I was sitting perfectly straight up. My mom came in and I must have looked very bad, because she insisted on calling 911, especially when I leaned forward and suddenly felt like I was smothering. When the ambulance arrived, they could not get a regular heartbeat. It was fast but weak. They couldn't get a blood pressure until they double-cuffed my calf and took it there. It was in the low 80s over high 20s, even with the added pressure. When I got to the hospital, they placed me in the pediatric room. I say that because there was a certain surreality to being in this room lined with one of my favorite childhood friends, Winnie the Pooh, which was what that baby's theme was to be, and now here we are facing death. I had a wonderful, if mistaken, nurse. They were all mistaken, who looked me in the eye and spoke firmly but kindly to keep me focused, trying to bring my breathing under control.